of City College, 1974. I was on the varsity fencing team for the 3 years when I was there. I continued to fence after that for about another 8 years. Since after I got married, I couldn't continue anymore, and it was hard to travel too. But then in my 50s, I started up fencing a little bit more as a veteran. Veteran meaning that you're older, okay? So I tried that for a few years. Then my knees started to bother me, so I had to quit. But then a few years ago when I retired, I was able to start up again. And this time I'm not competing anymore. I'm just doing it for fun and exercise, and also being reconnected with some of my old friends. Right now, I'm also being a member of the Asian Alumni Board. I'm also volunteering at the Fences Club. That's my club, and I'm also on the board there. So I'll mention that later at the end, where I'll give you some information, because there's a lot of information about fencing from that, and Nina has the website. So okay, so that's my background. As far as fencing goes, I just want to say that it is a kind of a unique sport. It's not your typical sport like basketball or football, where it's a spectator sport. Fencing is more a individual sport, but it's also a team sport. So typically, as a college fencer, you would join a team, and the team would consist of a minimum of 9 people. The reason there's 9 is because there's 3 weapons. In fencing, there's 3 distinct separate weapons. So in order to have a team, we need 3 members of each weapon. And then when you go and compete with another team, they would also have the same 9 people. Now, they usually have more, because besides the people that start, they have somebody who's a backup, in case one gets injured or something, which is rare. But I mean, sometimes the coach would pull out somebody and put in a substitute. So a typical team would consist of maybe 12 to 15 people. When I was, again, on the varsity team, we had about 15. So that way you had 3 starters and 2 backup. So 5 for each of the weapons, a total of 15. Now, as far as the competition goes, it's 9 people, but you only fence the other weapons. So each member will fence the 3 other people that are on the other team. So a total of a match would consist of 27 bouts, and the majority of that wins the match. So you could win by 14-13. That's 27. Anyway, so that's typically how that works. The history of fencing is that it goes back, thousands of years, right? But the modern fencing, it started with in the 1800s, and our club, the Fencers Club, started in 1883. So we're the oldest club in America, and continuous running, right? 1883 till now, we still exist. As far as the Olympics goes, the first Olympic, the modern Olympics, started in 1896, and fencing was one of the original sports. Okay, so at that time there was a whole different set of teams in sports, and now over the years they kept adding different sports, but fencing was one of the original sports of the modern Olympics. Besides the fencing itself, which consists of individuals and then teams, of countries, there is one other unique about fencing is that the modern pentathlon, which consists of 5 events, right? And one of it is fencing. The other one is horse riding, and there's one for running, and for what's the other one? There was, I think it was swimming. One more, and there's another event. So there's 5 events that consist of modern. Oh, I think it was the shooting. That's what it is. So there's 5 events that each athlete would have to be good at and train for, and in order to to compete. So that's a very tough event. So again, fencing would be only one of the 5. But in other cases, then like let's say today in Olympics, fencing is just the 3 weapons. Okay, and the 3 weapons are foil, epee, and saber. and I'll show you what they look like a little later. The thing about fencing that I want to impress on students, hopefully there's some students or parents of students that are in the audience, is that it's a very good sport to help you learn discipline. So it's kind of like martial arts, so fencing is that's similar. It's compared to playing chess with on your feet. So it requires strategy and it also requires stamina, right? So it's physical, being that you're on this, you're doing things physically, but you also require some mental to strategize to beat your opponent. So I think in that respect, fencing is a very good sport for kids. And in our club, we have kids starting at age 8. So they go from 8 all the way up to, we have people over 80. So there's a long range of people that can enjoy fencing at different levels, right? So when you're starting out at 8, you're probably more likely being in a class, a group of maybe 10 people, and the coach would put you through some regimen exercises to teach you the basics. But when you get better at it, you typically would ask for a coach that will give you individual lessons. And when we were on the team, we had a coach that would give us lessons to prepare us for the competition. And these, again, it depends on the coaching is very important. And just like in other sports, the coaching probably is 90% of this. If you want to win, you would try to find the best coach, and that's true of other sports. But in terms of the other aspect of fencing that I think is good for kids is also it helps them, gives them a little extra activity when they're applying to college, and especially for Asians. Okay, that's one of the few sports where Asians can participate and excel. I mean, I'm just generalizing, but that's the case, right? We don't have the body strength or like for football and things like that in general. That's why you don't see too many Asian football players. But if you go to look at a typical competition in our club or elsewhere in fencing, you'll find probably, I would say, 25% Asian. So for that reason, I think so if your students or kids would want to just take up fencing, you're giving him that little extra edge, because I mean, you obviously, if you wanted to apply to Harvard, Yale, all these schools, they would have to you would have to have the grades, right? But then a lot of people have good grades; they have high SAT scores. But if you can also have it on your resume that you're a fencer, then that gives you the extra edge. Okay, so anyway, that's just something to keep in mind for the kids. For me, I found fencing helps me not only in life, but at work. When I was working, in my career, I think fencing gives you that discipline that you typically don't get, and then you have to really keep your control. If you lose your cool, right, usually bad things happen. Like if you're in a meeting and you get into an argument, it's the same type of thing on a fencing strip. When you're against an opponent, you're just trying to focus on doing the thing that you want to do to try to win. But if you get distracted with somebody, let's say, make a bad call or something like that, you lose your concentration. That's when you lose the game. So part of fencing is to teach you how to stay focused and to have a discipline. So let me start and just show you some of the basic equipment, right? If you're interested in fencing, I mentioned that there's 3 weapons. This would be a foil. So it's the lightest weapon. And the other thing I will say about fencing is that it's one of the safest sports. In the Olympics, they do an analysis, and fencing is safer than badminton. That's how safe it is. So fencing it's not really, when you say it's a sword, it's not really a sword because see, it's not sharp. There's no sharp edges. There's no sharp point. The point is just a little button. It's steel, so it bends. So if you get hit by it, it bends. The most injury that I've gotten is a bruise. If somebody hits me, somewhere here really hard, I could get a bruise, but that's it. There's no. Now the only thing that really could happen that's extreme is in case it breaks. So when the blade breaks, then it's very sharp, right? And then that's why we wear this thing called a plastron. So over our, underneath the shirt, we wear a plastron that's over the shoulder that you're fenced with. So I'm a lefty, so this is on my left hand. So in case it breaks, it gives you a little extra protection. But again, it's very rare. I've seen it, but it's very rare. So this is the lightest weapon, and this is called a foil, and it's usually the first weapon that you learn. For a kid, that's good because it's lighter and it's easy to learn the basics. All the basic moves in fencing are the same. So once you learn the basics, then you can move on to some of the other weapons, and it's based on your personality. I can explain that a little bit more, but so that's the second one is the épée. This is the one that I fence, and you could tell it's a little bigger, heavier, and it's a little more stiffer, but it's the same idea. There's a point, and this is the handle, so it looks like a pistol grip, but there are other ones that people use. Some people like the French grip, which is like this. A French grip is only just one, like very straight. The advantage of the French grip is you can actually hold it a little further back, so you give you a little extra distance. So some of the shorter fencers may want to use the French. But so the épée has all the weapons have a connector in it. You see this? This is a connector. And what you do is you connect it with the body cord. This is the body cord, and it has 3 prongs. See? So the 3 prongs plugs into here, just like that, and then it goes through your arm and back into the back. When you put on your jacket, this is inside, is hidden. But what it does is then the back is connected to a reel, which is then connected to a scoring machine. So every time this thing is depressed, a light goes on, and that's how fencing is scored. There's a little more to it because assume you have 2 people that are fencing, and it's going on very fast, and well, who gets the touch, right? So in fencing, in épée anyway, the one that gets the touch is whoever gets it first. All right. Now the timing, the machine has a timing of a 1/25th of a second. So anybody who hits ahead of the other person by 1/25th of a second, only one light lights up. But if both of them are hit simultaneously within the 1/20th of a second, 2 lights go up, and that's considered a double touch, and that's fine. It just counts as So the 5 touches will win the bout. So typically, but then if you go into a direct elimination, then it's 10 touches. So, but that's how it's scored. So I'll just show you the one other, which is the third weapon, is the saber. This is what a saber looks like. You can see a little different. The saber has a different shaped guard, and that's because you want to protect your hand, right? A saber is more of a cutting weapon, whereas the other 2 is a thrusting weapon. So for saber, in the original intent was that you're riding on a horse. So you wanted to be able to, slash or cut, your opponent, because it's a lot harder to hit it with a point. So that's why. So then the guard protects your hand, right? So anyway, that's the 3 weapons. Some of the other equipment I want to show you is you do need a glove, all right, to protect your hand. So that's what a glove. And a mask. Okay, so that's important because even though I said the fencing is safe, there's no sharp point, there's no sharp edges, but you can poke somebody's eye out. So that's why the mask protects your face. Now, with the COVID, our club actually has been open since September, right? A lot of the gyms have been closed because of COVID. But the latest guideline is that you have to have less than 33% attendance. So we do limit the number of attendance. But we also are asking people to wear a face mask underneath the regular mask. So the face mask that I recommend is this one. It's a new design. It's created by 4Ocean, and what it does is there's a little plastic structure in there, and what it does is it keeps the mask away from your mouth and your nose. So because when you're fencing, you're breathing very heavily, and with the regular mask, it's very hard, and you're sucking the fabric right into your nose. Whereas this thing, again, somebody invented this. It's a wonderful invention. So now you can breathe as hard. It's not sucking it in. Anyway, that's just the thing. Okay. Oh, one more thing. So I didn't show you my whole getup. So the full getup is I have shoes, right? I have a sneaker, and then I'm wearing pants. I have the Plastron, and then this is optional. Some people would actually get this is called a protector, so that again, I was talking about for the bruising, this will prevent it because you'll get hit, and then underneath this is the jacket. So I'm not putting it on. I'll just show you. But this is the actual jacket that goes over everything, and the wire goes right through this. Okay, so that's the whole getup. It's a little hard to do it here. Okay. All right. So now I just want to give you a few basic moves. Show you some basic moves. So now I said that fencing is compared to chess, and actually that's a very good analogy, because if you think about chess, you have a board, right, of 8 by 8 square, and then you have the men that are making different moves, right? They can only allow to do certain moves, and then both opponents are trying to beat the other person, like, given the rule. So fencing is kind of like that. We have a strip. Okay, that's where the typical bout is conducted, and I'll show you right over here. I kind of marked it off with tape. I don't know if you can see the whole, but the strip is actually 1.5 meters wide and 14 meters long. So that's the whole board. You can think of it. That's the chessboard. So the two fences stay on the strip and they move back and forth. You can't go side to side like they do in the movies. Okay, so fencing is not like that. You're restricted to a strip, and the only thing you could do is move forward and back. Okay, and the other thing you could do. All right, so now I'll talk about the moves. So I'll give you some basics. I'm going to stand here so maybe you can see. All right, so the first move is the salute. That's important. Before you start a bout, you always salute your opponent. Okay, so you do it like this. That's a salute. The next move is called the en garde. En garde means when you're getting ready. And the en garde, I don't know if you can see me. I'll see it on. But it looks like I'm in an L shape with the knees bent, and because this way your center of balance right over your body is right over the middle, so you have very good stability. Right? You don't want to fall over. This is called the en garde. So in the beginning, there's two lines, and then the two fences faces off in the middle. right? The next move is called advance, right? So once you're there, the director says fence, so then you start, the two fences start to move. So this is an advance, so you see, and there's a retreat. Advance, retreat, advance, retreat. So it's a very simple, right? Now, if you're attacking, so there's always two fences. There's when somebody attacks and somebody defends. When you're attacking, one of the moves is called a lunge. To do a lunge, I'm going to put my weapon down. I don't want to puncture my wall. Right? So you're on the advance. To do a lunge, you just have to push like this. See? So you're thrusting forward, and the other hand gives you a counterbalance. So this is called a lunge. See? So you go like that. So the power comes from the back leg. So you're pushing off like this. That's the attack. To defend, here I'm going to use the weapon again. So if somebody attacks you, well, you have a couple of choices. You can do what is called a parry. A parry is you're going to just block it. If somebody comes with you, you block it. You could do it here. You could do it here. There's actually, in fencing, we divide into 4 quadrants. So you have something that's on this quadrant, and you have things on the other quadrant. So there's like 4 quadrants. So that's a basic defense move. Additionally to that, instead of blocking, okay, that's one way. You could do what is something called a stop. A stop is when somebody's attacking you, instead of trying to parry him, you actually try to hit him first. So that's called a stop. So typically a stop would be, if somebody's coming at me, I'm just going to do this. See, I'm pulling back my leg, right? Can you see? And I'm just going to put my weapon right, trying to hit him before he gets to me. So that's the idea. So those are the basic moves. So, I mean, it sounds very simple, right? So once you have 2 people on the strip, you have a defined area, and then you have some basic moves that you can advance, retreat. So now what's the key? All right, so the key is, so what's so special about fencing? Well, it's like, here's why I'm going to use the chess as an analogy again. When you play chess, you always thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead, because you're not just going to react to the current move. Because if you did, you're probably going to lose, right? So same thing in chess. So you're always thinking ahead. You're saying, if I do this, he's going to do this, then I'm going to counter with something else. So by plotting that in your head ahead of time, because by the time you're actually doing it, it's too late to think about it, right? If you think, right, in chess, you can actually sit there and you can, think a long time before you hit the clock, right? But in fencing, the difference is you don't have that luxury. You have to do it on the fly. So to do it on the fly means you have to practice. You practice certain, just like in piano or something else, you practice the moves so that when the time comes, it's going to be second nature. You're going to do a parry repulse. You're going to do a counter. You're going to do a stop. All of the things that I talk about, you can combine it into different moves. So that's what makes it a little more interesting, because your opponent is not going to be predictable, right? He's going to try to do the same thing to you. So you're trying to psych him out or fake him out. He's going to try to do the same to you. So in any bout between 2 people, it's almost like a conversation, because you're initiating something. You could do a false attack. You could try to beat it, just to see the reaction. So all these things comes into play. And what a coach does, here's what I'm saying, the importance of a coach. What a coach does is actually teach you the moves, right? Obviously, your move has to be perfected, because if you do it wrong, you're going to get hit by, a random move. So you want to do the most basic moves that's accurate. So that's the first part. But what a coach that gives you, that's an addition that you can't get anywhere else. Like, I can't teach you how to do it because there's a timing involved. So when you're actually doing the bout, think of it as 3-dimensional, right? So you're not only doing the moves, but you're doing it in sequence with someone else, where there's a time sequence. If you do it just a little bit ahead, it's not going to work. If you do it a little slower, it's not going to work. The timing is what has to be perfect. So if somebody attacks you and you parry, it has to be at the right point. If you parry too soon, it's no good. He can, do something else to kind of avoid it. But if you do it too early, again, it's just one of those things that the timing is what makes it like critical. So what a coach does is he actually provides you not only the practice of those moves, but gives you the timing so that you can then simulate what you're doing in a bout. Okay, you're never going to get the actual, simulation of a real bout. Because once you're on the strip, everything else kind of falls by the wayside. Because every opponent's different. They could change their game from touch to touch. So they could go on the attack or they could go on the defense. If they're, typically if you're tired, you could say, I could lay back and just kind of catch my breath. If you're gung ho, you want to just go after. So again, every competitor has their own strength and their weakness. And what you as a competitor want to do is to figure out what your opponent is doing that's wrong, or try to play on your strength and make him fence on his weakness. So again, that's kind of hard to teach from a coaching point. That's why this is one of those sports you can't learn just by watching. You really have to go out there and just join a club, find a coach, and then just kind of work with it. And it takes years really to perfect. That's why it used to be in the U.S. we don't have fencing started until maybe high school. That's years ago, but that's changed. Since the 1980s, when the fall of the Soviet Union, we had a whole bunch of coaches that came over from Russia and the Eastern Europe, and they were the top, right? So they started training American students with their European methods, and they believe that you should start young. So now we are starting kids starting at age 8, and by the time they get to high school, they are really already very, excelled in the sport. And in fact, if you look at some of the Olympic team members, they're in their teens, they're 19, 18, 19, 20, and they're already good enough to be on the team. So this whole sport has changed a lot. Let's see how we're doing on time. Okay, well, that's about 30 minutes, so I'm opening it up to questions. Anybody has questions? How are we doing?
So far, no problem.
Yes,
Yeah. How long is the game? I missed that. Can you repeat the question? You can unmute. Anybody? You can
hi.
unmute.
Shinpei, thank you very much. Jack, during the competition, how long is the game? They do by quarters or like 10 minutes or 15 minutes?
Okay, the way it works is that usually the preliminary round, right? Just like in other sports, there's a preliminary round, there's the direct elimination round. In the preliminary round is a 5-touch bout. And 5 touches, then you allow 3 minutes. So a 3-minute period, right? They usually keep a clock. So as soon as the people say start, and then you start the clock, and then whenever the actions, like a touch is scored, then they stop the clock. So only the active time is counted. But within that 3 minutes, whoever scores 5 touches will win the bout. So that's the preliminary round. After that, it comes into direct elimination. So what happened is they rank you. Let's say there's 10 people fencing in a tournament. So the first 10 people would fence in a preliminary round, 5-touch bouts. And then at the end of that, they rank them from first to last, right? So if you won all your bouts, you'll be number 1. If you lose all your bouts, you'll get the last. But then in the direct elimination, they match you up the first and the last, just like they do in tennis. So this way, so you have that. So once you, with every the Elimination round, you knocked out half the people. So let's say you start with 16, then you go down to 8, then you get down to 4, and then just 2. So the final. In those rounds, then they extended to in the seniors, which is the regular people, it's 15 touch fouls. So they give you 3 rounds of 3 minutes, right? So you have to basically they'll give you 1 minute rest in between. So it's 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 3 minutes, and at the end of the total, whoever's ahead or whoever reached 15 touches wins. Okay.
Hi, Jack. This is Kaiwan.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Very interesting introduction. I have a question. When you count the touch, the long weapon have to touch the certain area of the component's body, for example, chest or leg, or where is count for the touch? Is there randomly everywhere is just a touch your body, then count 1 touch, or there's a certain particular area have to touch?
Right. That's a good question, and I should have mentioned it. But the thing is, it's different for each weapon. So for épée that I was talking about, my weapon, the whole body counts. So if you hit on the mask, the body, or the toe, it all counts. Okay. Now the only thing it doesn't count is, let's say, if you hit the floor. So that's why our strip actually is grounded. So that means it's metallic. If you hit the ground, the light will not come on. Only if you hit the toe, it counts. Okay, so that's the épée. But in foil, it has a little different thing, because foil, there's something called a right of way. So in épée, it's whoever gets their first count. But in foil, and actually Saber as well, there's a director who's calling the shots, right? So he makes the determination who initiates the action, who has the right of way. The other person has to defend, right? If you don't have the right of way, you have to defend. And once you defend, then you can take over the right of way. So slightly different strategy there. But and in that case, in foil, the valid target area is only the torso. So only below the neck, right? Here, and then till the crotch. So this is called the torso, and that's foil, the valid target. So in foil, they actually came up with a pretty ingenious method where you wear a metallic suit, kind of. It's flexible, but you wear it on top of each regular jacket. So when the weapon hits that part of it, the color light goes on. But if you're hit on the hand or foot, it's off target and the white light goes on. So the judge can tell whether, because again, the action is happening so fast, there's no way. In the old days, what they did, I forgot to mention, the reason that the jacket is a white, all the uniform are white, is in the old days, tradition, before the electric scoring, they actually used paint. They will put paint on the tip so that when you hit, somebody there'll be judges saying, "Oh, this guy got hit here." See, that's how they could tell, because it's happening so fast. So with the electric scoring, you don't need that anymore. But we continue with the tradition of wearing white. Okay, so then the last part I was going to mention is the saber. With the saber, because it's the in the old days we were riding on a horse, so everything below the waist does not count. So it has to be above the waist, but the head, everything else counts. So you have 3 different weapons, 3 different target areas. Okay, so I didn't want to go into too much detail, but that's why and then 3 weapons don't mix. In a typical competition, only a foil will fetch another foilist, épée, and saber. You can't mix the 3 because they're wearing different equipment. The rules are slightly different, but the good thing about it is we work as a team. So I do want to show you something. You can think about other questions, but I just want to show you. This is a picture of our team from college. This is my freshman team. This is my JV team. Okay, and this is a picture of my varsity team. Okay, and here's a picture.
Jack, which one is you?
Oh, okay. This one at the end here, this is me, right here. You see,
Okay, cool.
you see that?
Yeah, yeah.
I look different, right? Well, we all look different. But here's some of our members that a few years ago at the Lunar New Year, we actually had a reunion. So these are the same people that were on my team from 40 years ago. Can you imagine? Anyway, so that's the other benefit of being on the team, is that you form a relationship that you would last for a whole lifetime. So again, I don't know anybody from college that are from my other classes, but I still stay in touch with some of my teammates because you do form a special bond being on the team. And just because you're traveling, you know, we're hanging out, we're going out to eat and just playing, you know, and helping each other. Really, you're cheering, even though, again, it's an individual sport per se, but being on the team helps that you're helping each other, right? Supporting each other. You're cheering for your teammate. So I think all of that is positive, and I definitely recommend it for anybody as a sport, as an extracurricular activity when you're going to college. Like I said, it would help you get into college if you're one of the better ones. So all the good stuff. Any other questions?
Yes, Jack. Kaiwan again.
Yeah.
If you play one-to-one, two people compete, this pair should have the same kind of a weapon, or you can choose whatever you want to use.
No. Each person is specialized in one weapon, so you don't switch weapons.
So if I compete with you, you can use pay, I can use whatever, different things. So how the light, the score light?
No, that's what I said. You can't mix it.
Oh, you cannot. Oh, sorry.
Right.
Okay, I got it. You cannot.
Has a style. Yeah, you only switch to one weapon for that bout, and then if you change to a Saber bout, then they switch the machine to another registry. So so only the same weapons compete. But again, being on the team, the beauty of it is that you have three people that are on the same team. Actually 9, right? Because 3 from each weapon. Mm-hmm. And then we also cheer each other while we're competing. So usually there's only 2 strips that's active at a given time. So you're sitting around watching in between the bouts. So you can watch and cheer your teammate. So I think that helps too. When you, as a competitor, you want to know that you're doing something for the team. So you try to excel more.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yeah, hi Jack, this is Jean.
Yes.
Yeah, this is wonderful. I'm sorry I was late. I forgot.
Okay. But you know, like I said, I do have a lot of information besides. So this is just a very basic introduction. You can go to the website, which is the www.fencersclub.org. That's my club. And if you're really interested, you can come down for like a trial. Basically, that's how people start. You come down with a trial lesson just to check out what's going on. And many clubs will offer like a free or very cheap introductory thing just to get if you have a student, you wanted to let them try it out. Okay, now if you decide to continue, you do have to join. There's a member fee. It's not, you know, fencing is not a cheap sport. I can tell you right now. It's you know, because there is equipment. Like as I show you the equipment, there's the uniform, there's a bag, and usually you need more than one weapon because they do, you know, break. Not that physically break, but the points and stuff break. So you will have, if you go into a tournament, I would normally carry 3 weapons. Because, you know, just in case something, because if you don't have a working weapon, you get penalized, you lose. So you do want to have a spare. So just, again, equipment wise, getting lessons is not cheap. The group lessons are cheaper, but if you want individual lessons, they're like $40 each time. So the sport is not a cheap sport, but our club is a nonprofit organization. So we do offer, you know, for special underprivileged kids, we have special programs. We actually are working with the Peter Westbrook Foundation. So I don't know if you know Peter Westbrook. He was an Olympian fencer, and he was black. He was one of the first black fencers that has excelled in the sport of fencing. So after he became an Olympian, he decided to start a foundation to help other kids, underprivileged kids, to get into fencing, to get them out of the troubles. So because it helped him, he grew up in I think in Newark, very bad neighborhood. So fencing saved his life, is what he said. He told us many times that if it wasn't for fencing, he would be dead, because many of his friends at the time were into gangs, into drugs. So a lot of them died, in their youth. So fencing saved his life. So he wanted to do something to help the other people. So he started the foundation. He went out and he was a very good speaker. He got people to donate money. So his foundation is now, where the Fencers Club form a relationship with the Westbrook Foundation. We allow them to use our space. Every Saturday morning, they have kids that's only for them. They come in, they practice, and many of them have become Olympians. So you could see how, like, one sport, right, has done so much for so many people. And many of them got into Harvard and some of the Ivy League schools because of fencing. Because a lot of these schools do have scholarships. They offer, if you're really good, they'll give you a scholarship, just like with other sports. So that's one way to get into a good school.
Hey, Jack,
Yes.
Sorry.
I actually practice the Chinese martial art, the sword. I see this is very different. Do you practice the step pose before fencing?
Well, you mean warming up? I do warm
Yeah,
up. You have to warm up because otherwise you could hurt your muscles.
Right.
But you're right, though. It's very different than the Chinese martial arts.
Right.
There are some similarities in terms of the actual moves, but in terms of the actual combat, it's very different.
Right, the muscles are different, right? The parts, yeah.
Well, yeah, the motions are different. But I think, though, strategy-wise, I would think they're very similar, because all martial arts have the same, the same idea where you're trying to fake out your opponent. I think boxing, same thing, right? You want to block, you want to, fake. It's the same idea, but yeah. I mean, it's discipline. I think it's part of the same.
The goal.
Right. You have to really focus, right? Your mind. So I think that's very important for young people, especially because it's very easy to get distracted. So by having them focus on a particular sport and then learning that sport, and then again learning all the aspects of competition, because again, these are things you have to kind of learn and experience. And everybody's going to have a bad day. I've seen young kids, when they lose, they throw their mask on the floor. So, but that's, again, you don't want that. You want to teach kids not to lose your cool, because when you do that, you basically lost the match, right? So you have two more. Typically you have 3 bouts that you have to fence. If you lose your cool in the first bout, then you kind of had it. So that's part of the coach's job, is to make sure these kids learn to keep their cool, focus on what they learn, and put them into practice when they're competing with other people.
Yeah, I think also obedience, right? Obedience, it's
yes, discipline and following orders. Again, all these things are good for life, right? So they're not just for fencing. I always tell kids, look, fencing is it's one of other sports, but it's teaching you skills that will help you in your job. When you go for an interview. I mean, again, all these things will help you. So why not, right? So that's why it was the best thing that happened to me when I didn't even intend on getting into the varsity team. I signed up for just a PE class. When you go to City College in the old days, you're supposed to take 2 PE classes, right? To part of your curriculum. So I didn't know. I just picked fencing. So the first day into the class, the instructor was the JV coach, and he just picked me up and said, "Look, you look like you have some skills. Why don't you just try out for the JV team?" that's how I got into fencing. So it's a very, but it turned out it was very positive because again, even though it took time, right? Besides, studying, I was in engineering, so I had a pretty tough courses. But the time that I took to practice fencing really helped me in other ways, that I can't describe, but it helped me in my job later on, in dealing with other people. I traveled a lot around the world, and then when you bring up fencing, they say, that's interesting, right? So it's a conversation starter. So,
What's the average price for the weapon?
you mean like for a tournament?
Yeah. Oh,
typically
just
tournaments-
any exercise, just for
Can you repeat?
exercise. I mean, you don't go to tournament, right? You had to take some lessons.
Oh yes, that's what I'm saying. You join a club,
Right,
so the club has a membership fee. Then
right,
if you take lessons, there are individual fees for the lessons.
right.
Then if you wanted to actually join the tournament, it's $40 entry fee. They call it registration. So everybody who compete in the tournament will have to pay that. Because there's organization involved, right? When you go to a tournament, there's people who organize it, there's people who run it, there's directors, there's judges. So they have to get paid somehow. So there is a fee. And of course, if you go to the nationals, which is like, once a year, right? There's a national one, that's even more. That's probably I think they're $110 right now. But then you have to pay for your travel, right? So usually it's in a different city, so you have to go. But overall, though, I mean, I think every sport has something like it. It's just that I think fencing probably, if you to be honest, it is a little more expensive because just because of the equipment involved, and like if you're into like track and field, right? All you need is a good sneaker. But fencing, you have a lot more equipment, right, and gear and stuff. But I think it's worth it. Like I said, all the training and the lessons, everything is worth it because I'm pretty much just talking about kids, right? If you have kids that may consider going to fencing or some other sport, consider fencing because it just has so much more possibilities, down the road. They'll enjoy it. It's good exercise. It's good for the mind, and also it's good for the career.
So I went to CCNY the same years that you did.
Oh, okay.
And I also took the fencing course,
Yes.
the PE course, and it was a lot of fun.
Right.
I was wondering what
So,
did you
the
compete?
coach, do you remember? Professor Seeley was the coach.
Was he the only coach? I remember taking it. I mean, I remember the only words I remember were Parry and riposte. Yes. But what schools did you have a women's team?
Who?
Was there a women's team?
Yes, there was a team. So here's the history about.
I remember being asked if I wanted to join the women's team.
Yeah.
But it's hard when you go to a commuter school because.
Yeah, you're right. No, but there was a women's team, and there's still a women's team today. So they actually got rid of the men's team at City College for another reason. But yes, so in the beginning, back in the 70s, there was only foil. So because women, they thought that they weren't strong enough, so they were only allowed to fence with foil.
Yeah, that's all we had.
Yeah, but in the 80s, the women's wanted to also get into the other weapons. So now we have all three weapons. So women fence in all three weapons now. So
Okay.
the possibility is in fact, we have some of the top fencers that are women in our club that are on the Olympic squad.
Well, it was nice back then because you could join the teams a lot of times because they didn't have enough people that could actually spend the time to join the team.
That's true. Even now, we City College, the fencing team now is we typically don't get enough students, right? You need a minimum of 9. We typically have only maybe 6 or 8. So we always looking for new members, So if you have students or know somebody, just tell them to consider joining.
What schools did you compete with?
City College.
But what did you?
Mean other schools?
Right.
Yes, okay. Now, here's the other interesting story about fencing. Back in the 70s, there were only a handful of schools that actually had fencing, and they turned out to be mostly Ivy League schools. So we fenced Columbia, NYU, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, and the military academy, the U.S. military academy at West Point and also at Annapolis. So those are the teams that, MIT was another one. So those are the teams that we actually competed. But now, in today, almost every school has a fencing team. I mean, obviously some are better than others, and the top ones are based in New York. Like St. John, I think right now is a very strong. Columbia has always been very strong, and NYU.
That's actually pretty cool.
Yes, I'm telling you, fencing is just one of those sports that for some reason it's very, it attracts a lot of, attention because, again, it's not a spectator sport. So if you go to watch a match, you wouldn't see a lot of people, mostly just the families and friends. Because you can't really make heads or tail out of it if you don't know what's going on. I think I talked too much.
Oh, that's okay.
Hey,
No,
Jack.
it was I really enjoyed taking that course. So I would suggest anyone who's interested to try to find one.
What question, Quincy?
Hey, Jack, this is Quincy. Listen, this is very interesting. I always had a little fancy with fencing, but never knew much about it. Never knew anything. I learned more tonight than anything. But my question is, with the 3 weapons, do you learn each weapon, or you just pick the weapon that you want to work with?
So here's the story on that. Historically, people did learn 3 weapons, but over the years, it turned out in order to get good at a weapon, you have to devote more attention to it. So now it's very hard to find somebody who fences all 3 weapons. So they usually pick one and excel in that weapon. But like I said, when I was to go to college, there were people that fenced multiple weapons, and also our coach. You see, here's the thing: our coach. Actually, they call it a maestro because he teaches all 3 weapons.
Okay.
But today, in modern days, every school most of the time has 3 coaches, 1 for each weapon.
Okay.
So in the olden days, there was only 1 coach who teaches all 3. So that's a big difference in how but it makes sense because, again, if you really want to be good at something, to switch back and forth because the strategies are different, some of the moves are different. It's too hard. And if you really want to be at the top, like Olympics, you will want to focus on 1 weapon.
Hey, Jack, it's Jerry. Maybe I can add another perspective to that. I was on the team with Jack, and I fenced Saber at the time. And Jack called me up a few years ago and asked me if I wanted to take up fencing again. By that time, I was in my 60s. So the difference between being in your 20s and your 60s is pretty dramatic. I tried to pick up and fence Saber once again. It is an entirely more difficult sport when you're 60 years old as opposed to being 20 years old. So I basically converted from Saber to epee. All right, different sport, different weapon, different strategies, different target areas, but it is possible to do it. I will have to admit, I'm not really great. I was better at Saber than I am at epee, but I encourage people, regardless of your age, to take that as a opportunity. And it's not just seeing teenagers and college age people fencing. It's nice to see people in their 50s and 60s and 70s. And as Jack said, there are a couple of people in their 80s that are capable fencers. So Quincy, we're looking for you to come forward, okay?
I don't think I'm ready, Jerry.
How tall are you, Quincy?
I'm 6 feet.
Oh, you would be deadly as an epee person, okay? So, you tall guys are really dangerous.
Right.
So-
The height does have an advantage, definitely in that pay. Whereas the faster, shorter, Saber certainly is it's a more of a aggressive game.
So how much is like the equipment, just a ballpark figure of all the stuff you need to get, the weapon,
could-
equipment,
Most sets
Yeah.
for $100. Yeah.
about 100.
You get a starter kit from most of the, places that sell them for about $300. That includes your outfit, your mask, and a weapon. And then the only thing you have to really do is buy your sneakers.
Thank you.
But in the beginning, I think you could just rent it, from the club and just try it out without investing all that money.
Investment, mhm.
Until you actually make the commitment, then I wouldn't buy it yet. We have equipment there at the club. They're not the best, but it'll get you the idea of what it feels like, so that it'll get you started.
Okay.
So definitely come down to the club. We're open.
Okay.
Jack, Taiwan, can I see your clothes again? You just show, can I just show us again and open that? I want to see the clothes.
Sure. This is the jacket. You want to see the jacket,
Jacket.
right?
Jacket.
Yeah, this is the jacket. It's got
Are
a
there
zip.
are there any wire on that jacket?
No,
or
the
no?
wire
Just-
is here. You will wear it, by pulling it through one of the arms. The
Oh, okay.
wire goes
Separate.
right,
Separate.
right
Mm.
into one of the arms, and then it comes out the back. So I usually
see.
put like a hook in the back like this, so
Mhm.
that I put and then it goes into a machine. The machine
Mm.
has wheels that goes back and forth. As you're
Mhm.
moving forward, right, you're pulling on
Mhm.
it, and then when you go back, it retreats, so you don't trip over.
You see.
So,
Thank
the
you.
technology is pretty cool. And actually now they actually invented wireless fencing. So you don't even need this. With wireless fencing, you just put a pocket in your back pocket in a box, and then it communicates through a wireless. That's coming, up and coming. In fact, if you watch, by the way, if you go to YouTube and just look up fencing, you'll see a lot of bouts there. So there people do explain, they're people that explain what they're doing. So you can actually watch some of the top bouts in like the Olympics or the World Championship. They'll show you like the finals or the semifinal match, and you kind of get an idea of what they're doing. So I think
Thank you.
time is up. Anybody? I can answer more questions, but if you just email me, if you have, I'm always available. So. And to certainly come down to our club, right? My email is there. You can see in the chat. And there's a lot of information on fencing. I'm just giving you like the tip of the iceberg just to get you interested. But certainly I encourage people with kids to at least consider them to try it. Okay? Just give them that option to try it. Oh, by the way, Nina reminded me, I should just tell everybody, if you're not an alumni member, please consider joining. That's the easiest way you can help our alumni association. Okay, so please join our membership. It's $90 a year. It's a tax deductible, and it helps our organization. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Jack.
you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
Jack. Have a
Thank you,
good
Jack.
night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Jack.
Hi.
Oh, wow, David's family.
Yes.
Hello.
Hi. You're so cute. You gonna try fencing?
Yeah, the girls are